First of all, you tell me if there's anything that you think you haven't found in this music, which is there. If you impose anything for black something.
I think they left a little bit.
Sorry, I'm speaking a bit louder. I play too much Beethoven.
Okay. I'm not sure. I think I want to. There are phrases I want to say more, and I can find yet what I want to.
You think you can find more cadavre?
Yes.
Yeah. That didn't frustrate me.
Okay.
What I think you can add is that, in a way, it's a funny thing to say to you. It's too honest. It's too honest. I mean, the music has passages of light, leggero, fantasy, and you're rather serious in them. And I know that we cannot judge everything by Rachmaninoff's own performances. He was very, very shy about his own music. And so therefore, we always have to take that into consideration. But the leggerezza, the lightness he had, and your performance would have much more variety if you added that element. You seldom play pianissimo, you play piano. The other thing is, and I'd like to go just to the opening, you don't inevitably, when the orchestra comes in, or the two bars you give them their tempo, it's not inevitable. It doesn't have the feeling. You have to imply, getting into it, that there's only one place for you to play this, and there's only one tempo that you can take. I mean, you can take everybody can take different tempos, but you today, that feeling of inevitable timing, that's very important. How big is your hand? You can't, in any sense, stretch it. The left hand. Sorry.
A little bit more than that.
Well, the reason I ask you is that if you can't stretch it, that's fine. I can't stretch all of them either. It doesn't matter. But your solution is a bit too practical. In other words, if you could disguise it as much as possible, I hear very honest. Try to hide the fact that you've got. Rachmaninoff could stretch, wait for it, from C to A. You put that in your toaster. It's just incredible. So you would do what? C to E? 10?
No, maybe less than 10.
A dirty 11, as they say. So try not to be so rhythmic with it. More impromptu. And when you make your crescendo, as you go to bing, bong, bong, you want to give them the only place they can play, the only tempo they can play. That you didn't do. Let's go back to the beginning. We don't need the orchestra now. And in fact, we don't need it now for the rest of this movie. And here I want to feel there's only one tempo, and only one moment. Try it. On the very highest level, I'm losing your concentration. I don't feel like you've got me by the neck. It was too free.
Tov. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You are watching Israeli News Live. Today in Jerusalem, another terrorist attack. It was this time an Arab again driving a car, like in the case that happened several months ago. Only this time his victims were 5 Jewish policewomen, 5 Israeli women that were driven over by this particular Arab terrorist attacker. But so far, by the grace of God, according to Israel National News there, the women were only lightly to moderately injured by the attacker. The attacker was gunned down by Israeli security forces and is considered to be in guarded condition at the hospital there in Jerusalem. He also commenced to try to stab several people as he got out of his car after running over the women on the sidewalk there. And police, so thus far as the report we've been able to catch from Israel National News. Also, turning back to Netanyahu's speech that was done in Washington, I wanted to kind of look at that with you for a moment. Not so much the speech itself, but the way that the White House has actually handled this. And also how Congress, how John Boehner, how he invited the Prime Minister to Washington, D.C. to give his speech, how the Congress has rallied together with Israel, behind Israel, and of course the Obama administration just the opposite. And it reminds me of a message that I gave several years ago about Nabal and Abigail. So very much this is a prophetic segment of our News Watch here. And I wanted to bring that story back to your mind because Michelle Bachmann was the one that was like Abigail in the story of Nabal. This happened back in 2010 when Michelle Bachmann, when the Prime Minister was snubbed by the White House. In fact, it was said that Barack Obama had scolded the Prime Minister and said that he needed to think of his ways. Left him there, went and had dinner with his family, and left the Prime Minister in the White House to think about what he was doing according to the President. Later, there was an outcry in Congress for the way that the Prime Minister had been treated. And of course, Obama just really didn't care what the people thought about, but Michelle Bachmann demanded that he make an apology. She spearheaded this whole campaign. And so when I saw the news with the Prime Minister speaking at the Congress and constant, one after another, standing ovations for the speech that he was giving for the safety and protection of Israel, not only Israel, but the United States as well, I realized that the job that Michelle Bachmann had done and how she had reached out to Congress had certainly played a major role in biblical fulfillment or a story that has a prophetic implication, the story of Nabal, Abigail, and David. Now, let me just, so that you would, I can bring this, I want to read to you just a little short section here so you understand where I'm coming from on this. In 1 Samuel, the 25th chapter, dropping down to about verse 12, so David's young men turned their way. David had sent a delegation, by the way. He sent 10 men to Nabal. Nabal was a well-off Israelite. He had a lot of cattle, a lot of money, very well-to-do. And David at this time had been hiding out from Saul. He had a band of about 400 men, fighters that were with him. And down in Carmel, where Nabal kept all of his sheep and goats there, and he had thousands of them, David was a protection to him. He was a wall to any enemy that would try to come in and harm anything that belonged to Nabal. And it was very well documented at that time that he was there, a wall to him, because his own sheep shearers actually says this to Abigail later in the story. But Nabal was a very evil man. Jewish or not, he was a very evil man. Abigail, his wife, though, was just the opposite. She's a beautiful woman, very kind, and very wise. And so what happens is David sends, they're in need of food, and he sends 10 men to Nabal and inquires of him to be able to eat, to have some provision if he could give some of their food to them so that his men could eat. And he spoke about how that they have ensured that nothing happened to him, and they hadn't taken anything from his men either. And but Nabal turned his nose up to David and said, "Who is this David, son of Jesse?" He said, "Everybody thinks there's someone," kind of paraphrasing the story there. But he refused to do anything. Well, when the word came back to David, David said to his men, "Gird up your swords, for if there be a man that pisseth against the wall by tomorrow this time, there won't be one," is what he was saying. And we see that God was not going to allow Nabal to mistreat his servant the way he did. And but what happens in the story, though, Abigail hears about this from the sheep shearers themselves. They send, or the servants, they send word to Abigail the way David's men were treated and how that they were abused by Nabal and his evil and wicked ways, just like Obama abuses the Prime Minister of Israel. And yes, even though there's a lot of people that may not care much about Netanyahu, he was still, or still has been, anointed to be king over Israel. He's the one man that has been anointed to be a prime minister and prophesied that he'd be a prime minister not once but twice. So regardless of what we might think of him, I say we, not myself, but what people may think of him, he's still been anointed for the job. David was anointed king as well, and at the time people didn't think very highly of David either, except those that followed with him. Obama especially, he has done